Good evening, everybody. Hello, Chris. Got the JD. Unfortunately, the bottle's nearly empty, but I'm going to point something out here. I couldn't help myself. I went into Sainsbury's on Sunday because it makes a change from going in flipping Tesco. £20 for a 1 litre bottle. It was an offer, and normally this is like more than 30 quid. So I thought, well, Christmas is coming, and I like the honey one as well. It's quite nice. So I decided to buy that. But for tonight, we're having this is Chris Bell bought me this, and it's still going after all these weeks. So I shall just pop her some ice in it. There we go. Cheers. I think JD is one of the best whiskies out there. Anyway, who have we got? ADJ, hello. Had a grey Morris Marina 1.3 coupe. A good little car. Funny, so did I. I had a blue Morris Marina coupe. You'll notice something though. You know, like a lot of coupes, the front doors are like, they're bigger than what they would be on a 4-door car. But on these Morris Marina coupes, the front doors were still the same size as what they were on the 4-door cars. I reckon if they'd made the doors bigger, it would have looked better. But they didn't. It was British Leyland we're talking about. They were on a budget. Maybe they hadn't been bailed out by the government at the time. Anyway, tonight's the night. It's Morris Marina night. The reason I thought I'd bring Morris Marinas up is because I've owned a couple of Morris Marinas. And a Morris Marina was the first car I was actually legally on the road. There you go. Anyway, nice to hear from you, AJ. Malcolm, hello. Good evening. Hope you're well. Well, I'm thinking of hanging myself at work. We need a new mechanic at Steve's Taxi. So if anybody wants a job, it's like starting pay of 35 grand and we'll go up from there. We just need a good mechanic who's sort of like, you haven't got to be a prima donna or nothing, just somebody who knows their stuff. Haven't got to be sort of like Mr. Brilliant, as long as you're sort of like pretty competent and you know you can just get on your own initiative. So if anybody's looking for a job or someone who wants a job, then give us a call. Anyway, hope you were not had any dealings with Morris Marinas. Had chance of one, but chose Triumph Dolomite Sprint. Well, I'll tell you what, a Dolomite Sprint would have been a flipping nice car. They were the ones with all like the wood dash and the dials. They look pretty cool, I must say. Yes, it would have been a marked improvement over a Morris Marina. The trouble is, I'll go into the Marina bit anyway, but Marinas were knocked. I mean, it's everyone to their own taste. But back in the 1970s, I mean, these cars were launched in what, 1971, something like that? It was a long time ago, and they weren't actually a bad shape. And of course, back then, there were things you could get for them. Like, for instance, the Marina I first had was a 1974 Marina, 1.3 A-series engine. It was quite a lively little engine, actually, for a 1300 until it blew up. But I got a front spoiler for that. Underneath the chrome front bumper, you got a front spoiler which you could fix on. And it looked pretty cool after that. It looked like a little drag racer. But yeah. I never did have a Dolomite Sprint though. They were too much money. Good evening, Chris. How are you? Get the JD and some ice. Have another drink. Love the recent cooling fan video. I did do, I'll tell you what, it's warm in here. I put the heating on tonight and it's like, I might have to open the door in a minute. Where were we? Yeah, I did do a grill shutter mechanism video some years back, but I think it's probably been buried in the algorithm somewhere, so nobody probably even sees it anymore. So I thought I'd do another one. So there you go. The car was just sitting there on the ramp with a smashed bumper. I thought, oh, I better do a piece on this, get something out. Anyway, thank you, Chris, for joining the live stream, and thank you for the JD. It's nearly all gone, but I've got a backup bottle, as you saw. So I'm going to get some Beck's beers in over Christmas. Also, I had an idea for a Mark V Mondeo video that I do not think you have done. Transmission oil fluid and filter change on the Mark V power shift. Fancy making it when mine's due to be. I've done one on the Mark IV, but not the Mark V. In fact, there's only one car that's got the power shift on it that belongs to the company that I work for. And I never even see that car. So, but yeah, if we get the chance at some point, we can do that. That's not a problem. I should think it's not a lot different from the actual Mark IV power shift gearbox oil change. So yeah, we can do that. I am sat here with my Diet Coke, having a drink with you. I am on antibiotics for ear and chest infection, so I'm off the Stella Artois. Oh dear, antibiotics. Well, it's that time of year, isn't it? Hey, are people getting the flu this year? I'm just wondered. Hello, Craig. How are you? I've decided to have a nice drink to join you. Is your son interested in cars? Do you think he will follow in your footsteps and be a great mechanic too? I don't really want him to be a mechanic. I want him, well, we've got other plans. I think he would be actually good as an airline pilot or an engineer. That's what we're kind of figuring, if he can get into that sort of line. I actually, do you know what, I've trained so many people over the years, I haven't got tolerance to do it anymore. You know what they like when you get these apprentices? They're always breaking shit and getting things wrong. I just don't think I could handle it anymore. I think my days are numbered anyway. Within a year, I'm going to be gone. So make the most of it while it's there. But no, I don't think I'd really like him to carry on doing a mechanic's job. Not like me. I think as far as mechanics go, and especially the way the world's going, it looks like cars are numbered. The days of cars are dwindling. Finn, hello, over there in Ireland. Looking forward to the live stream. Well, Phil and Finn, did you have a Morris Marina over there in the Isle of Ireland? That's what we want to know. And you, Steve, did you have a Morris Marina? I would love to know. I had a banger Marina, so you did. I had a banger Marina for 7 years. Flipping heck. Most of the hoses had been replaced with copper pipe by the previous owner. So you remember the Marina very well. That's good. Because I tell you something, for bloody webcam, yeah, for a car that's been knocked quite a bit, for its looks, its dated looks, its poor drivability, well, suspension handling, I guess. I guess when you consider I will talk about the Marina suspension in a bit, but the driving experience wasn't the best, I guess, when you compared it to other cars of the day. But if you ever did drive a Marina and own a Marina, love it or hate it, all these years later, I guess now you'll look back on it with fond memories. I certainly do. I remember my little Marina, my little 1.3, it was that bogey green colour. KAG 294N was the registration. all those years ago. I always remember that registration, the same as my Mark III Cortina. I'll never forget that registration. Anyway, who else have we got? Jay, hello. My first memory of the Marina was in the late 1970s. Yes. You do know that the Marina was facelifted in what, 75, 76? You probably wouldn't even notice it that much. There's one thing I want to know, which I actually do not know. I believe in it was either 75 or 76, they facelifted the Marina. Now, you know the Morris Italia followed the Marina in 1980. And the Morris Italia used to have like the passenger side of the dashboard like swept round. It like swept in and swept round. Whereas the Morris Marina dashboard fascia was just one stretch, one big slab across the bottom of the windscreen. And you had like a vent in the middle, you had a glove box over there, but it was just like a black fascia with your dials and everything. Pretty basic. The Morris Italia, they changed the dashboard. It was a completely new dashboard, but did they put that Morris Italia dashboard in the facelifted Marina of 1976? I actually do not know that, because I did see at one of the car shows a Marina with an Italia dash in it, and I thought to myself, has somebody actually fitted that dash, or was it fitted in the factory? Was it a late one that was just, well, was it an Italia dash they put in a Marina before the Italia was released? The Morris Italia was released. I don't know. Maybe some of you out there will know the answer to that. Hi Sam. My van does have a wet belt system. Oh dear. That's going to be expensive. That's the best part of £1,000 if you put a chain in it. It's a lot cheaper to change the wet belt. I mean, the wet belt comes as a cartridge, like a cassette. If you convert it to a chain, you'll never have to change it again. It depends how long you want to keep it, but it's a lot cheaper just to put a new wet belt in it. But like I say, if you want to put a chain in it, it's obviously more expensive. Hello, Paul. How are you? Hope your week's going well. It's not going great, actually. My other mechanic that I work with has broke his arm. So basically, I'm on my own with everything piling up around my ears. It's a nightmare. We need another mechanic, desperately. I just said about earlier, if anybody wants a job, come along and give us a call. We need another mechanic. So that's all there is to it. Enjoyed last night's video. Yeah, I thought I'd bang that one out quick. I didn't have much else to talk about. So I just saw that car and I thought I'd make a quick vid on that one. My John 64. That Marina looks like the special edition model they did for the Queen's Silver Jubilee in 1977. Did they? Well, I couldn't tell you. But that particular Marina, the Marina on the thumbnail of this video, I just scaffed it off the internet, because although I used to own a couple of Marinas, I never had a camera back then. I mean, this was a long time ago, and I have no pictures whatsoever. But my Morris Marina was a 1.3 A-series engine. Now, anybody who's owned A-series engines, a head gasket failure probably wasn't far off the cards. But I got hold of an 1800 twin carburetted engine. You know, they made the Marinas. There's a 1.3 litre A-series engine. They also made the 1.8 litre B-series engine, and the 1.8 litre twin carburetted engine. They were twin SU carburetors. I got hold of a twin SU'd 1800 engine, and I fitted it in my 1.3 Marina after my 1.3 engine blew up. And here's the thing, I thought back then, this is a long time ago, I thought this 1.8 litre twin carburetted engine was going to be like flipping fast. I thought I was going to have the fastest car on the road. it wasn't going to happen, but it wasn't bad actually. It was considerably more powerful. The big problem I had was the moment I went to go around a corner, it felt like the car rolled so badly because it never had an anti-roll bar on it. It rolled so badly, I thought the car was going to fall over on its side. It was that flipping bad. I had to get my mate, because he had some muscles on him, to drill holes in the bottom suspension arms to actually fit an anti-roll bar on that car. And after that, it was a lot better. But yeah, the 1.8 TC that they put on the front grille, the TC, that was nice. If you had a 1.8 TC, that was a head turner. That was like the top of the range, the twin carburetted engine. Nice, and it was a nice looking grille as well, with a TC badge in the middle. The Don, hello. Johan, hello. Hello from South Africa. How are things over there? I haven't heard any news from South Africa lately. Hello, Roy, comment. How are you? Yep. You don't see any of these old cars on the road anymore. Now, you're right there. You're very lucky if you do. However, if you go to a few car shows like me and Kevin have been going to, you do come across a few. I've seen a Morris Marina this year. It was a very rusty one as well, but it was still at a car show. So it was still worth looking at. And this was the particular car with the Morris Ital dashboard in it. That's why it struck me, because I thought, how comes that Marina's got a Morris Ital dash in it? Oh, your first car. Yep. Well, technically, my Morris Marina was my first car, although my Vauxhall Viva HB was my first car, but I used to drive that around with no license, no tax, no insurance, never got caught in it though. But my Morris Marina was the first car I used to own that was actually legal on the road. I went down to the general insurance agency and got a month's insurance. It's like a big thing back then. Finn, great video on the Mondeo with a smashed front bumper. Yeah, that I should have put that as 2.0 because I've already done a grille shutter mechanism video, but this one's got a little bit more information than the first one. I've done a timing belt once. What did you say after that? Never again. Steve, my Marina had electronic ignition. Bloody hell, was that one of them aftermarket ones you fitted? Oh, fitted by the previous owner, caused the distributor cap or rotor arm to track about once a year. Yeah, well, my Morris Marina had points in condenser. They were the days. A lot of people won't even know this anymore. A lot of mechanics these days, the younger ones, they won't even know what points in condenser are. They won't know what a dwell angle is. But in them days, you used to have to fit new points in condenser. You used a multimeter to do what's called your dwell angle, which was the amount of time the points were closed. And you would use a feeder blade, like a 15 thousandths of an inch feeder blade, to measure your points gap. Then after you've got that preliminary set, you could put your multimeter on connect your multimeter up and measure your dwell angle, and you could get that just about right, so your points would be perfect. And then you do your ignition time with a strobe light down on your crank pulley. You turn your distributor to set that up, and obviously you do your valve clearances, and then you do your carburetor tuning, your mixture and all that. So all them cars of the past, there was a lot of adjustments you used to make on them. Not like these days, you change the oil and filter, fuel filter, and that's it. But yeah, if you had electronic ignition, I guess that was a big thing back then. I remember that. They used to do these electronic ignition kits that you just wire them into your car. How reliable they were, I'm not really sure. Johan, off the topic, was the Peugeot 404 popular in the UK? I don't even know what a Peugeot 404 is. So I'll probably say, no, it probably wasn't popular at all. I've never heard of one. So, Florin, hello. Pretty fast, those sprints. Overheated a lot though. Yeah. You know, I couldn't even tell you what engine was in them. You know, it's a long time since I've been at British Leyland, but I have seen a few. I was a cheese sandwich in the Milkman's Eye in 1971. Hello, Mick. Morris Ital. Yep. The funny thing is, the Morris Ital, it wasn't really, I would say it was probably worse than the Marina when it came to like the suspension. I mean, they were like bone shakers, weren't they? If you went over a rough road, everything was shaking. The car was shaking, the suspension was shaking, everything was knocking. I did drive an Ital for quite a while. Do you remember these Marinas? They never had conventional suspension. They didn't have McPherson strut suspension. And when you compare them to like the Cortina, which had like double wishbone and all that on them, and coil springs, the Cortina was far superior. The Morris Marina front suspension was like a stub axle with a top arm. The shock absorber was what they call a lever arm shock absorber. It was like a square block with a lever coming out of it, which went onto your suspension arm to give it the damping action. They were funny old shock absorbers. And then the bottom arm was connected to tie rods, and they had torsion bars, bloody torsion bar suspension. And the rear suspension was what, leaf springs with a live axle or whatever it was. Oh my God. But that, you know, I guess for a car that was like the 1970s, it was what it was back then, really. The problem is they were trying to compete, the Marina, against cars like the Ford Cortina, the Ford Escort, the Chrysler Avenger, the Vauxhall Beavers, and, you know, cars like that. But here's the thing. The Morris Marina, despite it's got a lot of negative coverage, it did actually sell pretty well when you consider. I believe in what, 1973, it comes second only to the Cortina. So as far as sales went, it weren't that bad. And most of the 1970s, it'd be in like third or fourth place as far as sales went. So I mean, you can't knock it too bad. There were a lot of Marinas about. Everywhere you went, there was either a Cortina, an Escort, or a Marina. So they're a very popular car, even though they were like a granddad car, a family man car. No, they never quite had the looks of the Cortina. But some of them Marinas, they weren't half bad looking. The coupes were quite nice as well. I liked them. I had a coupe, and it was a very nice car. I sold that to a vicar when I got rid of it. Then I got my Cortina. Dwayne, hello. From Dwayne 1800 TC to Snot Cooler 2-whip aerials. Hello, Dwayne. How are you? Yep. Now you're making me remember. Morris Marina with twin whip aerial. Do you remember you could go down the auto part shop and you could buy them long whip aerials and bolt them to your front wings? And I had two of them on my Marina. Ooh, swung back. You see, I'm trying to remember all these days that are long gone now. Going down memory lane, Dwayne. That's what it's all about. Every week I'm trying to pick a different car to rant on about. We had the Austin Maestro last week. Anyway, nice to hear from you. Whatever happened to ashtrays in cars? Well, they were trying to stop people from smoking, weren't they? I shouldn't think the tobacco industry was too interested in that. I do remember, I think it was Metros or something, they would only bring out one ashtray in the back or something. They would have limited ashtrays in the car. But yeah, all the early cars, having a fag ashtray would be like one of the main features. You've got to have an ashtray to put your cigarette butts out in. But smoking was perfectly acceptable back then. You know, you could walk into any newsagents back in the 1970s, and every single newsagent behind the counter would be a whole array of cigarettes, Marlboro, Benson and Hedges and all that lot. Flipping heck, there'd even be tobacconist shops, dedicated shops to tobacco and pipes and lighters and Zippos, and you know, it's all gone. They hide them now. You can't see them. Of course, everyone's vaping these days. I don't like that vape. I think it's a load of bollocks. Horrible stuff. They call them popcorn lung, didn't they? Now, I think if you're going to smoke, you're going to smoke. But I don't see the point of that vaping. And the funny thing is, a lot of people that I see vaping, they're coughing. They're still coughing. So I'm thinking it can't be doing you any good if you're still coughing. Anyway, I'm getting off subject. Hello, Paul. My mum bought a Morris Marina L-Reg 1972. Think I was about 7 at the time. I remember bouncing about the back. No seat belts at the time. I suppose nobody did care about seat belts. No. I can't even remember the year. But back in the 1970s, you didn't need seat belts. That's for bloody sure. Did that car have plastic seats? Because my car had plastic seats in it. I had to go to a scrapyard and find some velour seats to put in it and change all the upholstery. I'll tell you something, the seats that used to go in them cars, they weren't nothing to write home about. They were a simple frame. Yeah, and the plastic seats weren't much cot, were they? Not in the summertime. You'd sweat your arse off on them. No air conditioning either. My John 64, hello. Drum brakes all round with kingpins and trunnion. Yes, I remember the Morris Marina. Yes. Flipping, who the hell thought of the word trunnion? I don't know, but it always makes me chuckle when I say trunnion. I do remember trunnions because I've had to change trunnions before. They had a grease nipple, didn't they? And a lot of them didn't get greased up anyway, and they'd seize up, and your steering would go really heavy. And you'd have to take it all off the car, suspension off the car, put it in a bloody vice. Or I suppose you could do it on the car, but you need a pair of Stiltsons and a lot of heat. You'd have to heat that trunnion up, get your Stiltsons on it, and keep working it backwards and forwards and unscrew it. Bloody useless things they were. And they were terrible, weren't they? You used to get a lot of movement in them. They weren't the safest of things. Thank God for whoever invented the ball joint. And if you were a taxi driver, would you buy a Mark V? Oh my God. Funny you should say that actually, because in Huntingdonshire, it would, I think you've got to buy a car that's no more than 5 years old, something like that, as the law is now. So I would probably have a Mark IV Mondeo 2 litre, Mark 4.5, because they're more reliable, if you ask me. They don't have any coolant leak issues, but they're too old now. So it'd have to be a Mark V, or you have to get something else. But yeah, it wouldn't bother me having a Mark V. You just need deep pockets when they get a lot of mileage on them. That's the only problem. Musket. When we were kids, our neighbour had a Talbot Alpine, and then a few years later, a Talbot Horizon. You could hear the engine. They were rattly, weren't they? They were rattly old engines. Even if you'd done all the tappets and everything, they still rattled. I remember the Talbots. I think Talbots, they should have just called it a Talbot shaker. Shaker maker. Never saw a marina in South Africa, ever. well, Morris, I'll tell you something. The Morris Marina was based on the Morris Minor, on the floor panel and stuff like that. They took a lot from the Morris Minor to make the Marina. You wouldn't know that, but they did, because that was British Leyland at the time. They were underfunded, and with all the disputes and strikes and everything else, they were always on a budget. There was a cream Marina for sale a few months ago, 7K. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Old cars like that, like the Cortinas, the Capris especially, they're worth a bloody fortune now. I had my Marina around 2000. Blimey. You should have kept it. You should have bloody kept it. You'd been worth a flipping lot of money by now. But we don't, do we? Bloody hell, I wish I'd kept my Cortina. It's keeping them. It's keeping an old car like that, isn't it? It's keeping it and it not rusting away is the problem. Needing it to be garaged somewhere. Hello, Mondeo. Nice to see you have put your hand in your pocket and refilled your whiskey supply. You'll be buying new tools next. No, I'd rather resupply my whiskey supply than buy new tools. But there again, I do have to buy the odd tool here and there. What tools I do have lasted me well. Even the stuff I've got from Halfords isn't doing too bad. Anyway, cheers, Mondo. I'm thinking about taking the van to you as soon as I get the brakes sorted out. Not a good idea at the minute. Not a good idea at all. I'm on my own. I'm on my own with an entire taxi fleet, entire rental fleet, and a load of sales cars. We've got no mechanics. My mate has got a broken arm, so I can't do no private work. If there was like 3 of us, then yeah, no problem, bring it in. But as things stand, I'm on my own, and I've just got cars piling up outside, and I can't I can't do it all. So it's not a good time at the minute. That's why we have an advert on Indeed for a mechanic. So if anybody knows a mechanic, wants a job, a good mechanic, then the starting salary is 35,000 and it'll go up after that. The problem is you've got to be careful when you get to around about 40 grand, because then you get hit by 40% tax, and you don't want that. Then it's not worth it, is it? So you've got to try and keep the money just below the tax threshold so you don't get taxed to hell. But yeah, we have an advert on Indeed for a mechanic. So if anybody does know a mechanic who wants a good job, then give us a call. My Matt. Hi Phil. Can you tell me when the cam belt should be changed on a Mark IV Mondeo 2-litre diesel? Yes, I can. 125,000 miles, but I would do it at 100,000 miles just to be safe. But the recommended interval is 125,000 miles. There you go. The Morris Tail was a Marina allegedly styled by Italians. I actually think the Marina looked better than the Ital. And the Marina didn't rattle as much as the Ital. the Marina was a smoother ride than the Ital. Maybe by the time they're making the Ital, they were using all the spare parts out of the bins and slinging them together. I don't know. But my recollection of an Ital wasn't a good one. They were bone shakers. Tim, hello. I bought a second-hand 1.3 Marina 4-door in maroon as a first car for my girlfriend. It was okay and was not bad on long journeys. Unfortunately, she never learned to check the oil and seized it. Well, I do always remember that was a 1.3. Yeah, my 1.3 engine blew up. There was a load of smoke come out the exhaust. And after I got my 1.8 TC engine fitted, that was an old engine to start with. And you know, off the back of your car, all over the back boot and everything, back valance, after you've been for a long run, you'd have oil spots all over the back of your car where the neat oil was coming down the exhaust and coming out and misting all over the back end of your car. So that's what I used to contend with. Bonu, hello. After seeing your video on wet belts on Mondeos, I sold my 2019 titanium automatic 2-litre 190 for a Honda Jazz hybrid. You scared me. Honda, you know, them Honda Jazzes aren't bad looking little cars actually. Had a Marina, load of crap. Yeah. I don't know what to say to you, but it was a 1970s technology. That was the problem. They weren't the best cars for driving around in. The road holding wasn't great. They weren't very good over rough roads. They were rattly but you know, if you were young at that time and you had a Marina, yeah, I liked them. I know how bad they were, but I still liked it. It brings back memories now. One of my uncles had a Marina, orange, but never seen one after that. They remind me of the Austin Maxi for some reason. You know that the Maxi was quite a big, wide car. It didn't win any beauty contests though, did it? Yeah. I'll tell you what I did like. Let me just top the old JD up. I'll tell you what car I did like, which was sort of like coming along just after the Marina, was the Austin Princess. I liked it. It was a bad car, obviously, but I liked the Princess. They were a big, roomy car, and they were nice interior. Do you remember the Austin Princess? And then the Austin Ambassador? There was a lot of like British Leyland cars that are long forgotten now. Oh yeah, Austin Princess as well. Bag of shit. They had the hydroelastic suspension, didn't they? It had the 1.8 MGB engine in it. Yes, that's it. They took the 1.3 was used in like MGBs, I think. MG midgets, something like that. And the 1.8 was used out of the MGB. Obviously with a few modifications, so they fitted it in. But that was what they called the B series engine, the 1.8 with the twin carburetors. It weren't actually that bad. Do you know what? That 1.8 engine, you could do over 100 miles an hour in a Morris Marina. Mind you, even with the 1.3 engine, if you pushed it with the wind behind you, you could get 100 out of it. You'll just do it a bit quicker with the 1.8 litre, although that was a heavy old engine. It was a heavy lump. Nigel, oh my God, I had one. I would never keep its rocker clearance settings. It had a nut and flat blade screw to set. Yeah. But that was the thing back then, wasn't it? It was a labour of love. You always had to be doing something to them. There was always something needed doing. Either the points would go out of adjustment, the ignition timing would go out, the tappets would be rattling, oil leaks, fucking, oh, God only knows what. Cars back then needed constant maintenance. My Marina handled like a jelly. Pretty awful understeer too. I do believe they had a problem when they made them cars, that they did have like quite a bad amount of understeer, and they had to modify it. I don't know what they done. They modified the suspension arms or something, but that was a major issue when them cars were launched. By the way, love your work and you make me, oh, thank you very much. Usually I get better after a drink, but I've had a hard day at work because I'm having to work like double because there's nobody else there. So I'm having to do everybody else's work. So I'm shattered. So actually, what is the time? Do you know it's been it's been 40 minutes already. So I'll see how long I can last, but I shall not go over an hour and a half. Cost me a tenner. Mine with the electric ignition, with the electric ignition, still use the points and condenser. Oh, my memory's not that good. I know they had these little kits that you bolted on with electronic ignition. I thought it'd done away with the points and condenser. I thought you had to take it out. I can't remember now. I never actually got around to fitting one of them kits myself, but I did see them on cars. I know you could buy them in the auto parts shops back then. The later Marinas did also have the curved passenger. Oh, thank you. So they did. So what you're saying is after like 1976-ish time, when they revised the Marina or facelifted it a bit, which I guess wasn't a great facelift, but it was a bit, that's when they fitted the dash. I know that in 1975 or 76, they did revise the Marina, like a 2.0, and it was a bit of body styling more than anything. And they do mention that the dash was upgraded, but I don't know what. And now you've just sort of like confirmed that they've basically fitted a Morris Ital dash. So that dash fitted in that Marina would have followed on to the Morris Ital. Bingo. So the car I saw this year at the car show, which was a Marina with an Ital dash in it, was right. It was done at the factory. I thought it was a do-it-yourself job by whoever owned the car. Well, thank you, my John. Cyan, hello. Thoughts on Mark III Focus 1.6 TDCi? Thoughts? We used a Gunson's timing gun to set distributor timing. Do you know, I couldn't tell you now what one I had. I had this little red one. It's pretty good though. It worked. You could just put it down there and you had like the strobe light going and you do your ignition timing. Yeah, them days have gone. Sparkrite, yeah, that's it, Sparkrite. Who remembers the Marina coupe? I do. I had a lovely little blue Marina coupe, and I had what was called, I had this one spotlight. It was called a ray dot fireball. It was a bloody great big spotlight, and I bolted it to the front bumper. Went for a drive on the country roads at night, and you put this bloody spotlight on. It's like a great big beam of light. Oh my God, the things I used to do. The electron ignition was very reliable, except when the engine cut out due to tracking in the distributor cap. caused by the higher spark voltage. Yeah, I know a lot of rotor arms would arc out, and you know, in the distributor cap, you'd have the center contact, little carbon contact on a spring that would wear out and sometimes fall out altogether. And there's sometimes the car would still be running just with a spring, with a spark going across the spring. But yeah, they even later on they made rotor arms with just with a little resistor inside the rotor arm, and that resistor would pack up, and the car would cut out. I remember that suspension. Yeah, torsion bars and trunnions and lever arm shock absorbers. We had 4 Peugeot 404s in the 1960s, 70s, and 3 504s. I've heard of the 504. Didn't they have an aluminium engine, all alley engine? And a 403 in 1962, and 204s and 304, all in the UK, all excellent. Yeah, I was never sort of like a Peugeot person, so I can't really be sort of like much help in that department. I'd literally have to look them cars up and see what they look like. Slant 4. The 504, that kind of sticks in my mind. I'm sure I've seen one of them. I'm sure that's the one with the all alley engine. The Marina had trunnions, threaded things at the steering. Yeah, yes, indeed they did. They seized up. Handy crowd, hello. Nigel, a 73 coupe was my first car. Debumpered, no less. Debumpered. That was easy enough, wasn't it? I mean, they were only sort of like a chrome bumper with a couple of bolts holding them on, and they were off. And you could actually smooth, fill them all out, fill the holes out with filler, put a spoiler kit on the front. Looked pretty cool after that. You can't take a bumper off these modern cars, not like you could in the past. I miss my Mark V Cortina. Yeah. Yes, you wish you could keep them cars today. If only you'd hung on to them. Hello, William. How are you? It was made as a cheap car for the fleet market and was popular with fleets. Designed by the designer of the Cortina, was it? That's interesting. They probably thought, well, we're not going to have this one as good as the Cortina, so we better make it a little bit inferior. Yeah, they weren't a very remarkable car, really. I mean, they're a bit unremarkable, to say the least. But, you know, if you ever owned one, what can you say? You've either got good memories of it or bad memories of it. Jacked up arse end with red lights under the... Yes, you know, you weren't the only one. I used to... Do you remember? No, you do. Used to get what's called ladders, didn't you? There were 2 pieces of metal, and you would unbolt your leaf spring at the back, and you would put these ladders down, and so you'd lowered the leaf spring and put the ladders onto your body and onto your leaf spring. So you raised your body up, and then you could have your car looking like that at the back, like a drag racer. The road holding was probably even worse after that, but hey, they look good, and especially if you painted your back axle and got some lights underneath like you did. They look pretty, they look good. That was the kind of thing you could do back then. The S model Marina had the non-plastic seats. I never liked the plastic seats, they're flipping horrible. My 76 had discs. Yep. Well, he's obviously going to bring out discs sooner or later. I collected John Player's coupons. I remember them. As kid, got an Ingersoll watch, Noddy alarm clock, dartboard and darts, beach towel, and a Morphy Richards hair dryer. Oh dear. Hello, Dwayne. I bet you got bloody memories, didn't you? Amount of cars you've had. Mark III 2-litre Cortina, dark blue, chrome Weller wheels, and a side pipe that kept snapping off. Yeah. The only thing is, we've had Cortina night. That was a few weeks back. I have brought up the Mark III Cortina. I think I did mention that the chrome side pipe. It looked good. That was the side pipe the girlfriend at the time burnt her ankles on when she got out of the car. But it was sort of like I'm going to put a side pipe on my car, and it was nice. It sounded good, but it had this stupid universal flexible bit, and eventually it broke, and it got to the point where it rotted away. So I had to fling it all away and put a standard exhaust back on the car. That was on the Mark III Cortina. Thanks, Dwayne, for all the memories. I haven't forgotten. If I was a taxi driver, then I would buy a Mark IV. Yeah. I think the probability of breaking down in a Mark IV is much less than a Mark V. Well, I say the Mark 4.5 Mondeo, they were the better ones. And I remember the Ford self-adjusting clutch. They came out on the Sierra, didn't they? My Cortina used to have a clutch cable. You would adjust the cable. I think it was the Sierra. They came out with a self-adjust. It was, wasn't it? They had a self-adjusting mechanism on the back of the clutch pedal, if I remember rightly. Some like ratchet wheels. Yeah, yes I do. Yes, I certainly do. You're bringing it all back. A plastic pawl. That's it. A plastic pawl and ratchet, and it was bolted on the back of the clutch pedal. Yeah, I remember them. I'd totally forgotten until you reminded me tonight. Now I remember it. My Mark II Marina 1.8 HL TC Tahiti Blue was an excellent, fast and reliable car back then, and handled better than my mate's Capris and Mark III Cortinas as well. Still here to prove that point as well. Yeah, you know when they facelifted what was it? They facelifted the Marina. When was it? About 1978. You know, because from 1971 to 1978, they didn't have much in the way of engines, did they? They had the A series 1300 and the B series 1800 and the TC, and that was probably about it. I know they did have other variants, but they were in other countries. In the UK, I'm talking about. Around about 1978, they brought out the O series engine, the O series 1.7 litre engine, overhead cam. They put that in the Marina just before they put that in the Princess, I believe. Or they put it in the Princess first and then put it in the Marina, one of the bloody two. But that was quite a powerful engine back in that day. It wasn't the greatest of engines in its early form, but it weren't a bad engine for power-wise. Just thought I'd let you know that. Useless information. Yes, the ball joint is much better. Anything's better than a bloody trunnion. Yeah, nothing like plastic wheel arch liners. Yeah, oh, flipping heck. That's all there is these days, isn't it? Plastic everything. Did the Marina have the same door handles as the 1970s right? Do you know what? They could well have done. They had them like them little silver things. You'd get your hand and pull them like that, wouldn't they? Yeah. I don't know, because I never had much to do with Range Rovers, that's for sure. But they could well have done. You know how British Leyland were? There would be a lot of similarities between models. So it could have been a thing. 50k is level for 40% tax. Tell bosses you need more. I heard it was like 40 grand. I don't know. I am pretty sure it's 40 grand. If you go over like around about 40 grand, you're going to get taxed heavily. I had a Chrysler Horizon loan car. It had a gas conversion from a forklift truck that was optimal to use, but the propane bottle would be loose in the boot. Well, you could have bolted it down or got some bungee straps or something. Police used a lot of Talbot Avengers. They probably did. I think the police experimented with lots of different bloody cars back then. I know they used to have escorts, definitely. I'm too far away to apply for the job. Bummer. Mr. Godskin, hello. Marina, fantastic car. State-of-the-art suspension. Bulletproof gearbox. Let me tell you something. There is a guy here on this live stream who managed to obliterate a gearbox in a Marina. Dwayne, do you remember the gearbox you smashed to pieces? You put in reverse when you were going forwards. I remember that bloody gearbox. You made a right mess of it. Fantastic electrics, quality bodywork. You obviously like your Marina. Do you know what? I liked my Marinas. I don't think they were the best of cars, but I love them. I love them anyway. They bring back many, many good memories. And we were always fixing them. Was it true if you jacked up a Marina too high to change a front wheel, the windscreen would fall out because the body shell was as flexible as a dead fish? Oh, I've never heard of that. I can't see that. The windscreens in them cars, they were like a big rubber seal that you would put the windscreen in, and you'd use probably like we use like a string, put the string all the way around that seal, and use like washing up liquid something like that, and you'd pull the string in to pull the seal in, and once that was in, you'd have a special tool with a little beading that went in the middle outside of the seal, and you have to roll this beading all the way around to hold it in properly. But I've never heard of windscreens popping out. Nah. Unless someone else can sort of like say any different, I've never heard of that. No one goes where an Allegro goes. Do you know, if I come to the Austin Allegro, the Austin Agro as they called it, I mean, they were probably worse than Marina. But I would always remember the Austin Allegro Vanden Pla that I had to go out and get once. It had grey leather seats, and it had like, it was bling inside. It was really nice, I have to admit, for an Austin Allegro. But I don't ever remember a Morris Marina with leather seats. And do you know what? The Morris Marina, although they had various different trim levels, they never had like, they weren't ever badged as like Vanden Pla or anything like, because Vanden Pla used to be like the top model with the pinnacle. the highest model you could get, all the toys, all the fancy interior. But the Morris Marina was just like Morris Marina. It's either a 1.3 or a 1.8. Well, until the 1.70 series engine come out, and they called it a HL. Marina owners all developed very strong right legs due to the crap brakes. I did get brake fade on my Marina once. That's the only time in my entire life I've experienced brake fade. Yeah, you can stamp on the pedal and you're not stopping. You just carry on going. Johnny, my Mark V Mondeo had an overhead ambient light, but stopped working. What would be the cause of that, please? I had a mustard colour Marina, worst handling car I've ever driven. A Mark V Mondeo, an overhead ambient light. Oh, these aren't the little, like a little orangey light that's constantly on when you're driving. I don't know, because none of the Mark V's we've got have that kind of spec. They've just got the basic interior lights. You know, you've got two light reading lights, one either side at the front, and your main interior light, and that's it. So no, I don't know. And that's not even a bulb, is it? It's probably an LED. I've had nothing to do with them ambient lights. I had a Fiat 128, fast little car, but it rotted away. They were a small little car, weren't they? 1300, yeah, I remember them. Well, that was the trouble with most of the cars of that type of era. Rust got to them. You don't see that so much these days, do you? Most cars these days, rust just isn't a problem. But back then, it flipping well was. The 1.3 A series engines, which were in the Morris Marina, aren't cheap now. They're very sought after for the classic. Yeah, I bet they are. Try getting a Pinto engine these days. Do you know the funny thing is, I've seen a flipping, well, everything, any engine, the price of everything's gone through the roof, and everything is getting harder and harder to get hold of. So yeah, I can well imagine. I had my 1.3 up to 90 with at least a mile stopping distance. That was quite a bit of speed back then. Torsion bar front suspension nightmare when rust my first car. At least you could adjust the torsion bars, couldn't you? If you had the time and knowledge to do it. No, it's not the kind of suspension you'd really want to see on a four-door saloon or a coupe. I think the early electronic ignitions had something to do with the coil side. Yeah, there was different versions that come out. I think I do kind of remember what you're talking about. But there was some ignitions that you would do away with the Poynton condenser, and you would literally put it inside the distributor. 17 now on the points, forever doing them. Yep. Yes, and this is what I say. A lot of people these days, a lot of like younger generation these days, they wouldn't even know what Poynton condenser are if you said it to them. They say, "What the hell is that?" Even valve clearances, they probably wouldn't know how to adjust valve clearances. It's just something you just don't really do with these days. Everything's like hydraulic tappets. Was the electronic points kit called the Opticrom? Could be. Hello, Michael. I raced a 1.8 TC at Wharton Stock Cars. Didn't last long, but my dad had a Marina van. I put 3 engines in it. Was glad to see the back of it. Wasn't a bad thing, to be fair. Yeah, they did bring out the Marina van, didn't they? And they brought out an estate car in what, 1973, 74? They made an estate car. I think they were pretty rare. I didn't see many estates. Maybe they sort of like didn't sell well, but the saloons I think sold a lot better. The saloons and the coupes were the main ones you used to see. All Gunson's gear for tuning back in the day. I like the early dash better. Yeah, so do I. I wasn't keen on the Ital looking dash. It just didn't have any appeal to it. I know it was the more modern dash, but it just, I don't know. The early dash had a bit more charisma. There was something about it. It was nicer. I'll agree with that. Gunson's also made a see-through spark plug so you could check the colour of the combustion. At least you could top up the front shocks. Do you know what? It's been so long now. You're right, aren't you? Wasn't there a screw on them shock absorbers that you undone and you could actually top the oil up on them shocks? Unless, of course, they were leaking badly and you had to change them, or they were just completely worn out. I do vaguely. I've had to change them shocks, but it was such a long time ago. You've got to unbolt the whole bloody thing, and it's like a block. It's like a square block, and it's got an arm comes out, a lever that goes onto your top suspension arm, and it's dampened. It's got a damping action because it's oil filled. Yeah. You'll have to drag Monica out of the office and get her trained up as a mechanic. There's little chance of that. It's too warm in the office. I'll tell you what, it's bloody cold up there at the minute. Unless you've got the heater on. You put the heater on, it gets too hot. They made a 1.5 diesel B series engine at just 40 horsepower, model around 1976 in Portugal, but not available in UK as considered too noisy and rough. May have made a good economical taxi in Portugal. Yeah, I know they did make a diesel, but it weren't in this country, that's for sure. I know that, yeah. It would have been interesting to see one of them and hear it. It'll probably never happen, but it would have been nice. Triumph Dolomite Sprint. Street Machine, yes. Street Machine Custom Magazine. There was Street Machine and Custom Car magazines. I used to have like a flipping pile of them like that. And they were good magazines. They had loads of good shit in them. Especially like all the fancy spray jobs people used to do back then. The candies and the metal flakes and all that. Amazing. Wire the fog light up to light the back end up. Slant 4 was the Triumph Dolomite Sprint engine. Yes. Do you know what? I remember it now. Wasn't this also like the engine they put in the Triumph TR7? The engine sort of like, it looked like a wedge, didn't it? Like there was something missing. If you, I know exactly what you mean. I didn't have much to do with them at all, but I do picture them. It's kind of coming back. My first car was a 1.5 Allegro, brilliant car. Then I upgraded to a low mileage 1.7 Ital. Horrendous handling. Yeah. I didn't think the Allegros were that bad. I know a lot went wrong suspension wise and all that, but they weren't even a good looking car really, but they weren't actually that bad a drive. Anyway. Embassy number 1, focus points and few orange traffic, light air fresheners. You know, I remember Embassy number 1 cigarettes. They had the red stripes on the fag packet, didn't they? I used to smoke Embassy number 1, and yeah, I remember the few orange. It was like a little black cardboard thing with like a ball in it, and you'd put a pin in it, wouldn't you? You'd put a pin in it to let the fragrance out. We used to have them air fresheners in the past. I remember them all. Ratchet and pull, another easy fix. Yeah. Many a clutch pedal has come out of a Ford Sierra to have them ratchets fixed or replaced. That's it. Meg 828P. That was the Cortina Mark III. But KAG294N was the Morris Marina. Although I can't remember the registration of the coupe. I think the bogey green one was the main car I always remember. I'm surprised you remember that bloody reg. They kept the A series for years. Yeah, well, that A series was out in the 1950s, weren't it, in the minis? And they put it all flipping it. That's gone in the Austin 1100 and 1300, and that engine has gone all the way through to the Metros, all the way through to like 2000 or more. It's just run a long time. Still got the plates. Bloody hell. I want to see them. Oh, I sold you the car, Doctor. I forgot all about that. You bought the car off me. I want to see the plate. Do you know what? I got some little American plates that had Detroit written on them. The police told me to take them off because they were the wrong size letters. But yeah, I can't believe you still kept the bloody number plates, even after the car's long rotted away. And indicator stalk fitted to most British Leyland cars and Landys. Sorry to be rude, but hold are you? I reckon you must be 50, and Molly guessing she's 30. I'm 55. And Molly is, well, I can't even tell you her age, because, well, you'd have to ask her that. It's not my place to tell you her age. Yeah. I've seen a lot over the years. What? Remember my Marina tank was rotten. Took it out and ran around for months with a plastic can in the boot. Well, when I first got my Marina, it was completely rotten out. You remember at the back, in the corners, they'd have these sort of like dome bits in the boot well? They were gone. A lot of flipping glass fibre went in there. I know when I got my first Marina, it had a lot of welding done to it and a lot of body work and glass fibre, and God knows what to get it all up to sort of like MOT standard back in them days. And I had that car for quite a few years actually. But it was obviously like the rain, I mean, the rust killed it in the end. Earning tax thresholds up to 12,000 or up to 50,000 to 150 is 40%. Over 150, Yeah, I'm not going to earn that much. So it is 50. No. Oh well. Thanks for that, Chris. India, these get reduced thanks to the Tories. Oh yeah, well they're doing everything to make us poorer, that's for sure. When people had Cortinas and Marinas, I had a 1500 Avenger. I think the Cortinas were probably best. Well, the Cortinas were always the best seller, and they had the best looks. The Marina, it weren't far behind. I don't actually know how the Avengers sold. I don't think they come close to the Cortina, that's for sure. PVC seats, yeah. Didn't the Allegro have a square? Someone mentioned that the other week, but I don't ever remember seeing one. The Vanden Plas had a special raid. They did, didn't they? It was a bit like a Rolls Royce one. Well, it was a steeper one, a deeper one, and I'm sure they sort of like went up like that. It was quite on an Austin Allegro. It was quite an impressive front grille. Can you all remember pinstripes? Yeah, well, pinstripes were a big thing. Once again, if you went down your local auto parts shop, there'd be all kinds of rolls of pinstripe that you could buy yourself and go and put it on your car. Remember the P bags for windscreen washer and hand operated pump? Yep. You know, people these days, right? If you had these things, like you had a bag of like that you filled with water, and especially like you remember some of these cars, they had like a foot pedal, like, well, not a foot pedal, but like a button on your where your foot is, and you've got to press that with your foot to make your windscreen washers work. Like a little primer pump that's on your floor by your pedals for your windscreen washers. It'd be unheard of these days, wouldn't it? Because everything's electric. And if you had to use a manual choke, you know, like in the Marinas, you had a manual choke that was on your dash, I think on the right hand side, and you pulled it out and then you turned it like to lock it, and you had to slowly, as the engine warmed up, you had to slowly take the choke off and push it back in. What were those cars that looked like massive Maxes? The Wolseley. Yeah, they were. Yeah, there was probably a good resemblance there to a Maxi. My first car was a black Marina 1.8 TC. We had the good one then. You had the good engine. What's up, Steve? They've got a sad emoji there. Are you missing your Morris Marina? Anyway, it's 20 past 9. I'm going to call time around about 9:30. I was thinking tonight, it's like Morris Marina. It's only going to last about 5 minutes. But it's dragging on nearly an hour and a half. Whistling Dixie air horns. Dwayne, Dixie air horns, ring a bell. And lightning static stripe on the back and a wire coat hanger replacement aerial. Yeah, a colour tune kit. All these wonderful things that used to be out. At least you were never bored at the weekend, were you? You could always go down and buy something for your car. and it'd all be big excitement going to put it on. Do you remember that the Mark III Mondeo 03 had a recall from Ford, and I had one and I didn't know at the time, and it went through so many injectors. I don't know if they had anything, a recall to do with the injectors, but I know them Mark III's diesels, they did used to knock the injectors out. But there again, they were pretty quick cars. For a diesel, they were fast. It was like the candle that burns twice as bright lasts half as long. I remember the Marina overhead cam engine. That was the O series engine. They made 2 litre versions later on, but the early one, which they put in the Marinas, are 1.7 litres. It looked good in the engine bay when new, yeah, because that would have been a big thing. Overhead cam engine, that would have been a massive thing. Back in, I mean, this was the 1970s. Yes, the Gunston's colour tune was the see-through spark plug. Wasn't that the 131 Mirafiori? Mirafiori. It's a Mirafiori. Fiat. Marina's not good on the gearbox bit, not she? Well, they had like a tractor gear lever, didn't they? Look at the length of the bloody gear rod, gear lever. When you compared the gear lever to one in a Cortina, the Cortina one looked nicer because it was a lot shorter. Always getting pulled up by the bobbies in my Marina. But the police used to pull you up then, back then, didn't they? They don't anymore. Even when they remember, they used to stand by the side of the road with a speed gun to catch you. And if you were speeding, they'd put their hand out, go on, stop. At least back then you had half a chance of talking your way out of it. You don't anymore, do you? They'll just do you on the side of the road and you go past, and then a few weeks later you'll get a letter through saying you've been done speeding. Mark II Mondeo wiper switch was an upgrade to the Mark I, gave you more timed options. Never ask a woman's age, but whatever it is, Monica is double. Wolseley with the front bench seats. Weren't the Marinas fitted with heated rear screens to keep your hands warm when you were pushing? Yes, they were. I think maybe some of the early ones weren't, but some of the later ones were. I'm pretty sure. I know my Marine had a heated rear screen, but I do remember you could actually buy heated rear screens for your car if you didn't have one, and they were quite a thick. They were a horrible looking thing, but you'd stick them on the inside of your back window and wire them up. Had a windscreen washer hand pump on a 1975 Mini. Yeah. All these wonderful things they used to have to keep you awake while you were driving. If the engine didn't keep you awake, it weren't bad enough. Can I have an email address to write to you a problem with a Mark V Vignale? Maybe you could help me with some ideas and suggestions. Okay, I'll leave it in the description below at some point after this. No worries. Remember they had same manual choke on Dad's Mini. They always broke and needed 2p to wedge it. Yeah, I remember a lot of them choke handles. You'd put them out and they wouldn't stay out. You'd have to have your hand on them or use a clothes peg or something to keep them out. Seymour Buns I figure you stuck in the back window and pumped the board and it did a movie. I remember them. There was some kind of, yeah, it was like a doll, wasn't it? And you would press something and its pants would drop, wouldn't it? And it'd do a mooney out the back window. Oh my God. Flipping heck. Permanently in the scrapyards. Do you know the funny thing is, back then, it was brilliant. You could just walk into a scrapyard and just wander around, you know, do what you liked. Go to a car and start unbolting bits off it. It was great. It wasn't just the fact you were going to the scrapyard to get something. You were going to the scrapyard because it was entertainment. It's an afternoon's entertainment, really, wasn't it? Something to do. It was interesting. You can't anymore. Flipping heck. As soon as they brought out all the yellow jackets, and now you can't even go into the scrapyards. You just have to order everything, tell them what you want, and they'll take it off for you. The Big Maxes were Austin 1800s or land crabs, I think they called them. They were made of really thick, heavy metal. Yeah. Do you know what? That's going back too far. I'm okay with an Austin Maxi, but if you go back before that, then I don't know. Had a Cortina when I was 18, Dixie air horns and General Lee stripes. Crashed it 17 times. Must have been a tough thing. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of these cars did make their way onto the banger circuit, didn't they? My mate had a Datsun 140J. It had every optional accessory as standard, but rotting away even quicker than the Mark. Yeah, I know that the early Datsuns, flipping heck, they weren't actually bad looking cars. They were quite nice, but my God, I don't know what they made them out of. They must be metal like thinner than Coke cans. Well, they weren't undersealed properly. Everyone could go to the pub in those days and have 4 pints and drive and think nothing of it. Yeah, well, there weren't that many police about, was there? And a lot of the police, they would know certain people. If they would clock a car and they would know who to pull up. I have a Mondeo Mark III 2.5 for 9 years. That's good. Mark IIIs are good cars. Stick on heated rear windows. Yep. Yep. That was all the fun back then. Didn't have a heated rear window? You could go and buy one. Go and buy the strips and fit it on yourself. It wasn't as good looking as what the standard ones that come from the factory, but I mean, it done the job, I guess. Amalia, thanks a lot. Hello. Mr. Moon dropped his pants with a squeeze bulb. Yes, I remember that well. Well, I only remember it tonight since it's been like refreshed in my memory. 19 Roger. We all had yes, that's it. CB radios were the thing in the day, weren't they? Breaker 19, come on. Channel 19, I believe, was truckers. But yeah, I remember there used a shop down here in Huntingdon called Sports and Fashions. And it'd be like, it'd sell kinds of sports stuff, obviously. But when you went around the back of the shop, they had a whole section with fishing rods and stuff like that. And they'd have no end of CB radios and all the aerials and the fittings and everything. You just walk in there, buy your CB radio and stick it in your car. And then you could talk to your mate, or everyone could talk to each other, because everyone used to be out in their cars back then. Yeah, those were the days. Them horrible Smiths rear heated screens that fell off a week later. and an anti-misting product made by Holtz that turned to a horrible goo on the inside of your screen. I remember they used to do window tint in a spray can. I tried it once and I sprayed the windows, and I think this was actually in my Morris Marina, and it looked I kind of sprayed it on, it looked okay, but then when the windows misted up, if you touched the inside of the window with your finger, it would bloody smear off. Flipping load of old rubbish that was. Datsun 120Y. Rotted. But never went. Yeah, I remember the 120Y. They had like a high up back window. They were like a small two-door, was it? Was it two-door? Like a little coupe car with a boot. But I quite liked them. I never had one. I quite liked them. I do remember. Smith's heated rear window was popular selling in the motor accessory shops in the 1970s. Yeah. That's because manufacturers were too lazy to fit heated rear windscreens. Fitting a sunroof. Do you know what? Do you know, this is why I do these live streams, because it sort of like brings back so many things we used to do. I remember going to a scrapyard, not buying, because I think I got it for nothing, but getting a sunroof out of a car, unbolting it out of some car, going home, getting a bloody flipping saw, one of them electric ones, and cutting a jigsaw and cutting out the roof in my Marina and fitting a bloody sunroof, fitting that sunroof in. I have a 2007 Mondeo 2 litre TDCi, best car ever. Yep, they're good cars. If they're looked after, there's a lot of dogs out there though, but if they're looked after, they are good cars. It's gone 9:30, everybody. 19 trucks. That's it. 14 was local crap. Yeah, I'd be local crap. Oh, still got one. Bloody Nora. Do you know what? I don't even know if people use CB radios anymore. I guess maybe some do. Few scrapyards in Birmingham, you can take off your parts, but you have to wear high visibility. Yeah, I know. Kind of defeats the object, doesn't it? Having to wear a yellow vest. Bring back the good old days. Just walk in there in whatever you're wearing and get what you want. Fling your bits over the hedge if you don't want to pay for them. Can't remember ever adding fuses to our accessories we fitted. Yeah, you were supposed to, weren't you? But I mean, a lot of people didn't. I'm probably quite guilty of that. First car was a 1.6 Cortina. First diagnostics was starter motor, borrowed a 10mm and pliers, and my first fix. Well, you could do a lot of jobs yourself back then. Things were a lot easier. 120Y as a estate car. I think the saloon looked better than the estate. We all went on to 2 litre gears, metallic paint. Yep. You went from your Morris Marina to a Cortina. Those chrome ring wheel trims that just went around the rim. Was the Morris Ital same car? It pretty much was. The Ital was basically a Marina. Just a few it was more cosmetic than anything. Plus they put an upgraded engine in it. But yeah. Well guys, that's it. I'm going to have to call time. I just wanted to say the Morris Marina, love it or hate it, you have to admit, they did sell pretty well. There were plenty of them about back in the 70s. They never beat the Cortina, obviously, but they came close at times. But there again, when you think of British Leyland, the amount of disputes and strikes and God knows what, they lost a lot of productivity. So, but there again, they never had quite had the looks and the edge the Cortina had, but they done all right. And they have a special place in my heart because I owned a few of them, and I still love them today. I do prefer my Cortina, obviously, but my Marina, my old first Marina, actually, I had it for like, I don't know, couple good 2-3 years, and I mean that car got me everywhere. I don't ever remember it really letting me down big time. Lots went wrong with it, but it always get me to where I wanted to get to, if you know what I mean. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining the live stream. Next week I will try and think of another car to talk about, or I might do a Mark 5 Mondeo something or other. We'll see. I'll see what comes out of my head for next time. But anyway, guys, thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. So take care out there and have a good evening. Adios, everybody.